Now let's talk about a team that is nowhere near the playoff race, has not been anywhere close pretty much for the whole season. Although I was looking back, the Philadelphia Flyers did start the season 8-4-2, but obviously they are the team we featured today in the down and out segment because it's been a nightmare of a season for this team. They fell off after that hot start. They've been very nowhere near competitive for most of the season. They trade, of course, their longest tenured captain, Claude Giroux. So I want to ask you, Mike, what do you think in your mind was the number one thing that went wrong for this franchise this year?
Well, injuries didn't help right off the bat. You know, Couturier's been out for a lot of the season, Jimmy Hayes as well. Ryan Ellis was a big acquisition on D that was expected to play a major role. So I think that put Philly behind the eight ball to start with. But, you know, what you really needed was some of the young talent to take a step forward. And I just don't think that that's happened in Philly. And I'm not sure how much more is coming. They didn't have a first-round draft pick last year. They only had 5 drafts in 2020. They're missing second-round picks in the next 2 years. So the Flyers are going to have to build via trade, via free agency, and hope that some of these new acquisitions, some of these new signings, including people like Bobby Brink, who just won an NCAA championship at the University of Denver, Ronnie Attar, defenseman who's offensively minded, they've got to come in strong for this team. But Matt, more than anything, I think this club needs a fresh voice. They need a whole new coaching staff. They started off a couple of years ago with Alain Vigneault, Michel Therrien, and Mike Yeo. They had 3 head coaches, and it didn't work. And they've been so passive defensively that I just don't think they're built for success. They need a fresh voice. They need somebody totally outside of the realm of the Philadelphia Flyers to come in and lead this team. I think it'll make the biggest difference for them, and especially trying to get that power play going because it was the worst in the league this year.
Yeah, and you said passive defensively. It's a really good point. This team gave up a lot of chances this year. Carter Hart, I think, was largely to blame for what went wrong last year. They actually weren't that bad defensively. This year, it's the opposite. Carter Hart, his play improved a lot after the nightmare last season. But the Flyers, 28th in the league, 5-on-5, expected goals against per 60. He just didn't have any help out there. And like you said, the young guys, Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, they didn't step forward. And you sort of have this other part of your core that's over 30 years old, right? You have like Cam Atkinson and Kevin Hayes. Those guys are getting into their early 30s now as well. So you don't really have the prime year stars that are taking over. And looking forward, you know, this team's long-term plan, I know the discussion from ownership, the sort of mandate is to stay competitive, but I'm a little skeptical of that because if you look at the team's recent draft picks to the first round, German Rubtsov, Jay O'Brien, Morgan Frost, Nolan Patrick, of course, is gone now. Those are a lot of whiffs. And because of that, your trajectory, you haven't really replenished the talent pool to the degree you expected to. You don't have these young prime year stars ready to break out. And next year, this team, $76 million plus committed in cap space already, including $5.1 million to Rasmus Ristolainen. So I just don't know for sure that there's a way out here in the short term. Do you think there's any way this team can be competitive next year?
It's going to be tough. I mean, they're also missing leadership. They've lost their captain, Claude Giroux, left in a trade to Florida. And I think that's a necessary component. They need some creativity. They need help on defense. Like, Flyers kind of need a lot of things, Matt. And I'm not sure how they pull it off with the cap constraints. And, you know, with really there's the flexibility that doesn't come with that. There isn't enough of it there. So it's a big challenge for Chuck Fletcher, GM of Flyers.